Is everybody?
I think we have everybody back.
Okay. The RUCC annual meeting will now come to order. Lynette, will you lead us in a prayer?
Let us pray. Lord, thank you for your presence, your wisdom, and your understanding for those making decisions for this church, our church. We thank you for last year's blessings and the contributions of all those who volunteered to serve you. We ask for your guidance to prioritize God's honor and glory and the courage and grace to follow the right path as he guides discussion based on divine wisdom. Help us to work together harmoniously with words and actions reflecting love, respect, and unity. Open our hearts to recognize God's will. Amen.
Amen. All right. Okay, first initial things. When you make a motion, have a question, or want to do discussion, please get a microphone from an usher. Stand up, state your name, so the secretary and those in attendance can hear everything. And our secretary today will be Marilyn Antley. So make sure that, and Marilyn, if something comes about that you can't hear, ask about it. Okay, before we can approve part 2 with the orange cover of the annual reports, we have additions to the nominating committee report. On page 10, which is the last page of your orange book, under stewardship and missions, add Harlan and Chris Borchers, Borchers, and their term will last until 2028. Also on page 9, under the president is blank. The cabinet is going to need another week or two to secure a candidate for the office of the president. And when we have one, we'll announce it following the Sunday morning service, and we'll vote at that time on the new president. Okay, the minutes of the annual meeting are on page 2, part 1, which is yellow. May I have a motion to accept the minutes? Are you? Who was the first? Who? Oh.
Marilyn Sheaf, and I so move.
Second? John Hurt seconded. Any corrections or additions to the minutes that you've seen? Nothing? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The minutes have been accepted. May I have a motion to approve part 1 of the annual committee, the annual committee and board reports. That's the yellow book. Can I get a motion?
Pam Sevick, motion to approve part 1 of the annual meeting, the committee reports.
Second? John Hurt, second. Any discussion on the committee and board reports? All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Part 1 has been approved. In part 2, the orange cover of the annual reports, I have a motion to approve the minutes of the membership on page 3, memorials on page 4, fellowship treasurer on page 5, and the designated gifts and outreach on page 8. Is there a motion? Come on, folks. John Hurt. Second? Deb Jones. Any discussion on any of those reports? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Reports have been approved. In Part 2, which is still the Orange Book, may I have a motion to approve the nominating committee report and the election of officers, board and committee members? Anybody have a motion? Larry Moody moved. Second? I got one already. Thank you, though. Larry Cherney, second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. That report has been approved. In Part 2, which is still the Orange Book, may I have a motion to approve the RUCC 2026 annual budget, proposed annual budget on page 7. There a motion to approve? Paul Schoonmaker, approved, or motion, second? Paul Hurt. Any discussion? Nothing? All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. This report has been approved. Well, now under other business, Paul Schoonmaker from the Endowment Committee would like to inform the congregation of a new outreach that we have started. Paul, you want to come up? Cindy? Oh, didn't we do that? Yeah, that was the treasurer's report. Oh, I jumped over it, huh? Sorry about that. Back one. May I have a motion to approve the RUCC treasurer's report on page 6. Sorry about that. Paul Hoos for motion. Second? Deb Jones. Any discussion on the RUCC treasurer's report? Larry?
I have a question about the, let's see here, on the endowment funds, what exactly is the Ameriprise unrecognized gains or losses for both Ameriprise and Sequoia?
Okay.
What's it comprised of, actually?
With the fund accounting that we currently utilize, that is where we put the interest that is accrued throughout the year into those accounts. So what you're seeing is what has been accrued the last 3 years. We have accounts at both Ameriprise and Sequoia. The endowment has it in 2 different funds, and so that's how we recognize the interest.
Wait a second, Larry. Get the microphone back so everybody can hear your question. Thank you.
Thanks, Christy. I was just wondering, does that include fees and commissions and so forth off both of those accounts, or how is that recognized?
Yes, that's the net. So I take the beginning balance and the ending balance, and that's where the funds then balance out to be. That's the difference throughout the year.
Okay, so both of those are rounded into a number.
Yes, correct.
Pam Sevick. And maybe Paul will be talking about this and when he talks about the endowment, but is there any place that shows, other than it's lumped together, what the endowment paid out money for? I see the 75th anniversary, and I see the Kristen News thing that they said just because it sort of has dissolved, whatever. And then the only other thing was the OCWM match. Does it show up on here anywhere? I mean, it shows the balance, but I didn't know where it showed actual money coming out.
Paul?
And then also, does it need to be a match fund on the endowment?
if I'm understanding your question, let me make sure I understand the question. You're asking, does it show any disbursements out of the endowment account other than the ones that you've identified?
Well, it just sort of groups them together. Are those the only ones that were paid out of there?
OCWM,
I know that's a match, so
that's a
5,000.
we transferred that responsibility. I'm just kind of footnoting that. We transferred the matching money to OCWM. We took it out of the general budget and put that responsibility over into the endowment. So that's where that money goes to the OCWM. The monies that we have paid out in recent years, we were contributing money to the Youth for Christ. That money was accounted for last year. We have not contributed this year because there are some questions that we're trying to resolve. And then the next thing I'm going to talk about is future withdrawals that are coming out of the endowment, other commitments that we're going to be making. Now, have I addressed what you're asking?
You did, but I was wondering, with the endowment, does it have to be a match? It keeps mentioning
No, it does
match.
not.
I didn't think that it had to be a match.
Does not have to be.
And I had brought up last year about donating, taking some money and giving it to the Build a Blanket group for their supplies, etc. I was just wondering if that had ever fallen through. And plus then also, I was thinking of other outreaches, the Neighbor Good that we're always hearing about. And, you know, to me, that's what that endowment was for outreaches. And I was just wondering if there was any other things done throughout the year other than what was the 3 things that were mentioned.
Nothing other than what is currently listed, but what you're asking, I'm going to address.
Okay. I was just, because it never really specified amounts on here. I couldn't find them anywhere, but that doesn't mean that they aren't there.
They're
so.
somewhere in Christie's accounting.
Okay, I figured they were
they're
somewhere,
noted.
but I just didn't know if it itemized it anywhere that, because in the past, didn't we have like in your endowment report that you would give specific amounts or not? Maybe I have a senior.
I'm trying to remember in the current endowment report whether I listed that or not. I don't recall. I beg ignorance right at the moment.
Okay, sorry to make it things
No,
murky.
that's okay. Good questions.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. All in favor, I need a motion. We already have that, sorry. All in favor of approving the RUCC Treasury Report, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes. All right, now, Paul, if you would like to come up.
So I'm going to try to address the questions that Pam was asking, but I'll put it into some context because periodically we run into a little bit of confusion as to where monies come from within our budget. And given the fact that we have a relatively small crowd here, I'm hoping that you can take what I tell you and share it with others over coffee hour or in any other conversations. If you can be better informed, hopefully you can disseminate some of this information. If you look at the peach-colored report and go to page 6 and 7 and look at the balance sheet on the left page on page 6, and then look at the proposed budget on page 7. What I want to point out to you is within the finances of the church, there are three major concentrations of money. And this is where it sometimes confuses members. If you look on page 7, on the upper right-hand corner, under where the last right-hand column says Proposed Budget 2026, you will see 145,000 and change. That is one of the concentrations of money within our financial portfolio. That is the money that the members provide in donations to the operation of the church. We don't meet our entire budget with those pledges. If you look down that column, you'll see $125,000. That money is moved over into our general budget out of one of the other three concentrations of money that we have, because we cannot meet all of our expenses. And this is where it gets a little tricky, and I don't want to go too deep in the weeds, but I want you to understand what's going on. If you look on page 6, on the upper left-hand corner underneath assets, you'll see two large concentrations of money. The first one at the top of the line is the endowment that has a little over 600,000. The bottom line on that same paragraph, it says restricted gifts, 1.9 million. That is the gift that was given to us 10 years ago? About 10 years or so ago, when LaDonna Johnson, our organist, when she passed away, her estate left the church a massive gift. But that gift had all kinds of strings attached to it. We can only take it out as income every year. We don't have access to $1.9 million. People look at that number and they think that we're sitting on this 1.9 or whatever number it is on a given year. They think that's money that we can just use. We can't. We're given that money in a stream of income. That's what that $125,000 is over in the budget. That $125,000 is our allocation for 1 year. Other than that, we don't have access to the rest of that money. Furthermore, and Kevin Adams has tried to explain this on other occasions, furthermore, of that $125,000 that were allocated, we can't use that for salaries. We can't pay the pastor, we can't pay the organist, we can't pay anybody on payroll out of that money. So we have to use that money for non-payroll things. So you've got the congregation providing the money that takes care of payroll. We have an annual allocation that comes out of LaDonna Johnson's estate money that helps us supplement our budget. The third concentration of money is the endowment. The endowment was started in 2018, and to go back to Pam's questions, the original intent of the endowment was to provide outreach to things that we felt were important, whether it be the local community, whether it be OCWM from the national office, or any other outreach that we want to make. And we've used little pieces of it here and there. The money in the endowment was never intended as a primary source of income for our budget. Its purpose and creation was always primarily as an outreach. but it does have provisions in there for us to use that money in emergencies. But the endowment is a gifting tool for reaching out beyond the church. I hope that all makes sense, how those three blocks of money interact with each other. The congregation, the endowment and LaDonna's money were never intended to replace the responsibility of the congregation to support the church. They were only there for specific purposes. So, going back to the question that we're talking about now, the endowment has gotten large enough that it is now generating enough income on an annual basis. Last year, the endowment produced somewhere in the neighborhood of about $30,000 of dividends in cash that was produced in a single year. Each year from 2018 and the creation of it to where we are now, each year that number has gotten bigger and bigger. So we're getting some momentum now. The committee has decided that we now are going to start reaching out and giving some of this money to some causes. And we've gone through several deliberations on what we've identified. One of the things that we've done recently is we've looked around the Omaha Metroplex and have identified about 8 different organizations that we felt were worthy of consideration. What we focused on in our last meeting was Neighborgood, just as Pam was pointing out. Neighborgood is doing a lot of good work in our area, and they're expanding. And so this year, the committee has designated Neighborgood as one of our primary targets for gifting. We don't want to get too deep into the money because we may have other things we want to do during the year as well. And we've got a couple of things on the table right now. The gift going to Neighborgood is going to be a $5,000 lump sum gift that they can use to either supplement their program or, as has been mentioned in our discussions, it can be used to buy some capital expenditure, whether it be refrigeration or shelving or whatever they need, but it's their money to do what they want with. So that's going to be our first effort. In subsequent years, we're going to try to go down that list of 8 names and pick additional ones. So we are now going to start building our portfolio of beneficiaries that we want to give to. And if everything goes well and the committee decides that's the direction they want to go, we may continue gifting to Neighborgood in subsequent years so that they can count on a stream of money from us. And if we add somebody, we want to continue to, if we can, we want to continue to give so that these organizations can count on us and so that they know what we're doing. This raises something that I'll finish up on here before any other questions. Because the endowment is dependent on gifted money, we've been using some of the money from LaDonna Johnson, anything that we don't need that goes to the church for repairs and other projects, we've been transferring some of that money into the endowment to help build the endowment up. That's where a lot of the money has come from. Other than that, it requires gifting. So if you want to participate and help the church in its outreach mission, anything that you put into the endowment builds the endowment and builds the momentum of what we're trying to do for outreach. And I'll just mention this real briefly. This is not tax advice. This is just a general statement. Many of the retirement accounts that people have later in life, you have to take required minimum distributions, you have other monies that you may want to get rid of or whatever, you can make tax deduct, in many cases, that's the footnote, in many cases, you can make a tax deductible donation out of those retirement accounts and gift it to an organization like the church without having to pay taxes on that distribution. And you need to talk to your financial people for that. But if you want to participate in the endowment and see it continue to grow, and for us to be able to keep adding organizations to that, I would encourage you to contribute to the endowment. It's not matching money. It's just helping build that snowball bigger and bigger. With that, I'll be quiet. Do you have any other questions? Anybody have questions?
To make things muddier. To my understanding, okay, so you're moving some of LaDonna's restricted money or money to the endowment. Now, my understanding, and I could be totally wrong, so you could use interest, any interest on the money that you get from LaDonna's money. You could use that back into for salaries, because then it's interest on the money. It's not her original restricted gift. And I may be totally wrong, but I thought that's sort of how. It's a murky situation.
And murky is right. It's a gray area because the trustees has had this conversation on many, many occasions. The rules that govern the restrictions don't have a lot of specificity to them to address questions like what you're asking. And so we have to interpret that. And we have to, the trustees has been careful to try to honor the spirit of what she's intending. But technically, until the estate or somebody objects, we're trying to do prudently what we can with that money. And furthermore, to answer your question, within the endowment, there is a provision that if the church were to get into financial bind, there is a provision that a percentage of the money out of the endowment can come out back to the general budget. And there are definitions as to what those limits are and so forth. But there is a stop or a safety mechanism in there that allows us to reverse the flow back into the general budget on a limited basis. Does that help?
I think that's all.
Right. Yes, Marilyn.
Marilyn Aitley? Was that a yes?
Was that a yes? Is what she
To her question, was that a yes?
About money being used into the general budget for salaries?
No. Can the interest from LaDonna's money be used for that?
The interest from LaDonna's money appears in the budget in a couple of different ways. Money that sits long enough in Christie's accounting system, if it sits in a money market long enough to earn interest, that interest gets pushed back into the general budget.
So the answer is yes.
Yes, and the interest on the money, and Kevin, I saw your hand kind of go up. Go ahead, if you've got something you want to add.
Well, let me take a stab at this.
Sure.
Okay. Once the money from LaDonna's account goes into the endowment accounts, okay, and then it falls under the criteria for what the church can do with the endowments, and that is to only spend the interest that is made on those endowment we can't touch the principal. So that interest can come out. And then there's criteria on what that interest can be spent on. There was outreach, general expenses, and I can't remember what the third one is. So the way we viewed it as trustees is the interest that was earned on Madonna's money that went into the account can be used for salaries, etc. But again, then there's a criteria from the endowments earned. So I guess at the most, it could only be 25% of the interest that was earned on Madonna's money from the endowments that could be ended up being spent on salaries. So it wouldn't be a one-for-one, but it's kind of this big loop that, yes, it goes from Madonna's money into the endowments, earns interest. It could come back out for expenses, but out of that money that comes back out, only 25%, based on the criteria that was set up for the endowments, could be used for general expenses, which would include salaries.
So it has to go from Ladonna's, the interest on Ladonna's into the endowment first.
Now, it just goes from Madonna's restricted funds, what we can take out, which is that $125,000.
Mm.
And we'll put part of that into the endowment. So when we withdraw the annual amount from Ladonna's restricted funds, that's just an amount that comes out. It has nothing to do with the interest earned on her account. Then we put it into the endowment funds. And then once it's in the endowment funds, it goes in as principal, so only the interest that is made on it can be pulled back out. And the money that is pulled back out has criteria, which includes only 25% of that money pulled back out can go to the general operating funds in the church, which would cover salaries, utility bills, that kind of stuff.
Paul, you had referenced the income. One of them particularly was the general fund pledge income, the 145 and change.
Yeah, that's the commitments from the pledges from the membership.
So I'm just looking past. It dropped from 24 to 25, and then increased from 25 to 26 by about 44K.
Pretty significant.
Right, correct. So these are actually from pledge cards? Is that what we're saying?
Correct. That's the information that is transferred from Cindy Adams to Christie as to actual pledges from the membership. Did you have a question, Larry?
No, thank you.
Okay.
I was just looking at the looks like the number of memberships and so forth have declined, but it's a good thing. I was just wondering whether or not that was getting diluted or added to by something else.
No, remarkably, it was a significant increase this year. I cannot explain it other than collectively as a congregation, that number is just larger.
That's awesome. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Judy.
You. Okay, so my understanding is...
Yep, there you go. Talk right into the top of them.
My understanding is that the money that we get every year from Ladonna's fund is expressly used to pay certain things at the church?
Correct.
So how come it's all put into the endowment fund? I believe you said that.
It doesn't all go into the endowment.
Well, that was what I understood.
No, I think it
So
was
much is pulled out.
just part of it does. We retain
So who makes this decision? The Board of Trustees?
the Board of Trustees. Again, if you were to go down the page.
I can't see it. It's,
No.
I'm sorry.
It's a generic statement. If you look at the expenses of the church and you take all of the payroll-related items, the $147,000 or $145,000 in pledge money does not cover that.
I understand that.
So out of that $125,000 from Ladonna's state money, we supplement the budget to pick up other operating expenses, office supplies, repairs to the building, all those things that we can use it for. Those are given priority.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of money that goes into the endowment fund is dependent upon the availability of that money. If we ever got pinched and had such a major expense that we couldn't put the money into the endowment would not receive what it receives today. It's always secondary to the general budget needs.
So there's apparently always money left over every year from what is Ladonna's money that she leaves us?
There's a block of money that we started putting in, I'm going to say 4 years ago. We started.
I just know as long as we have had this endowment fund, I have never heard this before.
Heard of what?
That this money would be going, whatever was left would go into the endowment fund.
We have used it as a way of building the endowment.
Okay, well, like I said, I don't know if anybody else knew this, but I did not know this.
If for example, again, I'm trying to
No, I
give some
understand that. I
perspective.
just don't understand the transfer of the money always into,
Again, I don't want to make this overly complicated, but just hypothetically, if we had $100,000 left over at the end of the year of Ladonna's money, and we kept it in the general budget, and then we added more money the next year with the next allocation, we still have the restrictions on that money. We still can't use it
oh, I know that.
for everything.
I understand that, Paul.
So what we've tried to do is make the efficient use of the money by transferring it over to the endowment, to build the endowment up, to be able to do other things with it. And as Kevin has pointed out, there is a safety mechanism in there by which we can reverse the flow back into the general budget if we need to, with limitations on it. So we're trying to make the best use of the money as we can with.
You're using it as an investment, in other words.
We're using it as an investment in the endowment to
Okay,
pay out
that's-
these
thank you.
beneficiaries, yeah. Any other questions?
I know I can't vote, but I think I can raise a question. Correct me if I'm wrong. There is a certain amount that is taken from Ladonna's money into the endowment per month.
Correct.
I don't know if you all know that. And I think it is how much?
$2,500 into each of the two accounts, so it's a total of $5,000 each month.
Taken from Ladonna's $125,000 and put into the endowment. I just had to kind of clarify that.
Yeah.
People were kind of going,
And again, that's subject to whatever the trustees determine is, reasonable.
Joel, one quick question. In approximation, what did the endowment fund generate in percentage of increase? What did they make last year?
Last year,
1%?
last year we
5%?
made 8.8%.
Okay, that needs to be somewhere in this, because my calculator doesn't work that well.
I understand.
Okay.
That number, the only way that it would be reported would be, I would have to just include that in the general summary of the endowment in my comments.
Well, I think the average person in this congregation would like to know what it's doing.
And
What LaDonna's fund does, what the two divisions of the endowment does, so we have some kind of comparison. Otherwise, it seems like it's being hidden away.
And there is no intent to hide anything. And again, I don't want to take more time than what people want in this conversation. The endowment committee has taken the posture since the creation of the endowment. The endowment committee has taken the posture that we don't want to take high risk with the endowment money. We want a reasonable return with moderate risk. And so in the field of financial investing, 10% per year is considered to be aggressive. The market produces more than that sometimes, but the market also loses 40% or more in a given year when there's something bad happening. We are shooting for something in the neighborhood of 5 to 6% as a mid-risk, moderate return. And every year we have been pretty much on target, somewhere around 5 to 6%. This past year we had a very good year. We hit something like 8.8%. And so we did extremely well. I hope that helps a little bit. Yeller. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Stemming off of what Joel had said, is it broke out, and this kind of goes back to the original question that I had when we were talking about these endowments and so forth. Are the fees and the commissions that are made by both through Ameriprise and Sequoia, are those specifically spelled out?
The fees and everything?
The fees and commissions for those?
Those are spelled out on the statements that we receive monthly and year end. The money in the LaDonna account also reflects net of all fees as well. The fee structure on the LaDonna money is very similar to the fee structure on the endowment. Those monies that you see in the report are net of all those fees. There is no other expense line anywhere in the report that says Christie is writing a check for fees. The fees are deducted out of the investment accounts on a monthly basis by the managers at RBC, at Sequoia, and at Ameriprise.
Okay, so I understand that, those are fees, but there's also commissions, I'm sure, that are tied to that. And I was wondering specifically, you said you get a monthly statement. While we as the congregation, we do not see that.
You can ask anytime. I will show that information to anybody who is interested, but if I produced copies of that for the congregation, 99.9% of it would go in the trash, and nobody would want to take the time to comb through that. But, you know, the thing that I would point out, Larry, and I know this has come up in other conversations, the majority of that money that is in those investment accounts are not commissions. The word commissions in today's financial world is becoming more and more obsolete. what you're finding is most financial firms charge a management fee that pays, in essence, what was commissions in the past. If you watch, and again, I'm probably over-explaining this, but if you watch any television at all, one of the commercials that is constantly on there is a company called Fisher Investments. And they talk about how special they are because they don't charge commissions and so on and so forth. There's nothing unique about that. They're just making a lot of noise about something that is the standard of the industry. And that basically is things have been reduced in cost down to a small percentage as a management fee, and they're eliminating commissions on mutual funds and all that stuff that used to be common. But that's, you know, that's a whole nother conversation. Yes, ma'am. So much.
I just want to say that I, over the years, have had many questions for Paul and Kevin and other people, and they're always willing to share their explanations and information, and I believe that all trustees' meetings are open. Is this correct?
Yes, trustees, endowment meetings.
So that if any of you want to follow along what they discuss, you know, on a monthly basis, as far as what they, you know, purchase or pay for or whatever, I think everybody should go ahead and attend those meetings, because it's an eye-opener, you know, and if you feel like you want to keep up with all of those things, that would be a good way to do it.
The main thing I wanted to just, and I will try to end on this, the main thing that we have been trying to do over the years is to make this church financially stable. If you look around the state, if you look around the country, this church is extremely unique. There are churches closing around the state in our conference, in Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota. There are churches closing constantly because they don't have money to stay open. And some of them even have endowments that were meant to keep the church going, but their memberships have declined so badly. We have been very fortunate that since this church was created in 1949, we have managed to stay open. And as Larry pointed out just a little bit ago, you know, the pledge income from last year to this year saw a sizable increase, and that's a testament to the congregation. We're trying to make sure that this church remains open for generations to come. And part of the reason for the endowment's creation was to help with the giving side of the church and allow the congregation to focus on the actual operational side to keep the doors open. Anything?
Just a comment, not a question. Is there another vehicle that you could put the money in other than the endowment? I mean, I know it wouldn't make as much interest, but would there be another vehicle that you could put the money in to use it without having more restrictions on that money? Just a thought.
Well, I'm not I think I understand a little bit of the nature of the question. The endowment was created with restrictions because every endowment has restrictions. You know, Bill can talk about the types of restrictions that they have in terms of endowments he's involved with, restrictions on how much you can use and the fact that you can't use the principal and you can only use so much of the interest or whatever. But every endowment has some sort of document that guides that. We used a guideline for the endowment based upon other similar endowments from churches who were trying to do the same thing. We didn't create this out of blue sky or thin air. We actually used some guidelines to create the endowment. So the limitations that are in there are very similar to what a lot of similar endowments have. Is that,
I was talking about the money that you're moving that's restricted from Madonna.
with the money,
I know you're using as much of it that you,
yeah, you can,
you're using as much of it that you can for things that. I know you're using as much of the money that you can for things that are allowed
correct.
under that and stuff. But I also was wondering if there was another vehicle, that money market, CD, something that you could put that money in that would still be getting interest on it, other than putting it into the endowment fund, because then you've just added more restrictions on what you can use.
We can do that type of thing, but I will tell you as a retired financial advisor, anything that you put into a money market, a CD, a savings account, anything like that is losing money every year because it will always be typically lower than what the total rate of inflation is. There will be some variations on that theme, but most money market CDs, other low-risk investments, earn below the rate of inflation. Now, some of the money markets right now are paying a little bit higher than inflation, but you know, it varies from year to year. Yeah, anybody who has questions about any of this stuff, see either Kevin or myself. Our books are totally open on that. Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you. Jan was just reminded me, one of the other beneficiaries that we have approved with guidance from the trustees as well as discussion in the endowment committee. If you were in church recently, what's Luke's last name? Strider? Shriner? Like the Shriners? Yes. Oh. Our employee that has helped in the office and has helped with the AV and a lot of other things, Luke Schreiner, who is going on a missionary trip to India, I believe. He spoke just recently to the congregation, if you were here, and he's raising something like $6,300 for his trip. He has been such a valuable contribution to the church, plus his mission of spreading the word about Christianity around the world is important, you know, to our purposes as well. We are going to donate $1,000 towards his mission trip to help him with his goal. And so that's another beneficiary that we are going to pay out from the endowment as well. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for asking your questions. Need to do that. All right, is there any other business anybody has? Okie dokie. Pastor Matt, you want to give us a prayer to close our meeting?
Let us pray. As we conclude this meeting, may we look towards the future with a mission filled with love and hope and peace to share in the achieving of the goals of our church. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord look upon each and every one of you with favor and give you peace. Amen.
All right. As of that, the annual meeting for 2026 is now adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around for the meeting.